Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. It's the Sleep Number biggest sale of the year. All beds on sale, up to 50% off the limited edition smart bed. Limited time. All Sleep Number smart beds offer temperature solutions for your best sleep. Check it out at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com today.
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
A magic beyond anything you could ever imagine.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Sagrera Farms on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day.
You really think that's the best idea?
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio, this is Hunt Palmer.
It's quite a piece of work.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from Mercedes-Benz at Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Thursday. Means we're brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Working towards the weekend. Appreciate you hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Got Jordan Kitchens in the ugliest hat I've ever seen back there on the ones and twos with Cassie Spazzali. We're off and running here. Got a lot to do over the next 2 hours. We're going to shuffle some guests around today. Had some planned. We've moved some in the last 30 minutes, but we're all set and ready to go here on this Thursday. Andrew Alegretta is the play-by-play voice of the Vanderbilt Commodores. He's going to be with us in 30 minutes. LSU heads to Nashville this year. I want an update on the stadium. Probably quite a few of you that are listening that are probably going to make that trip because Nashville is awesome and LSU is going to win the game. So I think it's interesting to get a feel for how the stadium looks. We'll get a preview of Diego Pavia and the Commodores as well. Chris Blair at 2:15. Sonny Ship at 2:30 talking recruiting. We tried to catch up with Sonny yesterday. Had a commitment he needed to get to. We'll get with him today to talk about LSU in terms of its quarterback recruiting for 2027, which I talked about yesterday, as well as the latest on five-star offensive linemen from the state of Virginia. LSU and South Carolina in the mix there. We'll talk to Sonny about it in an hour and a half. So plenty to do. Let's crank things up the way we do every single day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's opening drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
So I went on a little bit of a numbers mission this morning. Got up, went for the old run, got the creative juices flowing a little bit. What are we going to write about? What are we going to talk about today? Because you realize we've got one show today, one show tomorrow, and then we got Brian Kelly press conference on Monday. We've got Clemson to look right dead between the eyes 2 shows from now. But you still got to kind of massage some things and figure out what you want to talk about as this week concludes. And I wanted to spend some time on special teams. I did a segment on special teams a couple weeks ago and talked about how I think LSU is going to have a quality special teams unit. But I wanted to do some digging in 2 different respects about special teams for a story I've got up at LouisianaSports.net and for what I want to talk about today. And I go back to a team that now is significantly in the rearview mirror. I do realize that. But I feel like the recall on it for my listenership, for the LSU fan base, is pretty good. I think most of y'all, if you're not 17 years old, have a pretty good remembrance of that 2011 LSU team. It's one of those deals where when they go on a run that special, and with YouTube around right now, like you feel probably a little bit more connected, remember and have better recall of that season than if I said, what about the 2014 Tigers? You have to go through, okay, that was when Mettenberger left, Beckham and Landry left. Oh, that was Fournette's first year. Yeah, he went to Houston. You could probably get there if I say 2014, but it takes you a little bit longer. When I say 2011, I feel like a lot of you kind of lock in to that team. And I wanted to talk about the special teams on that unit just as an example of how impactful it can be. I think you'll remember these plays. Tyrann Mathieu strips DeAnthony Thomas on that punt in Arlington and runs it back for a touchdown. Like, that is a monster play in that game. Obviously, Tyrann did the same thing when LSU was down 14-0 against Arkansas in Tiger Stadium. He runs a punt back 90 yards, and LSU just whitewashes the Hogs from there. LSU did not get a first down in the first half against Georgia in the SEC championship game. But Tyrann runs a punt back, and that gets LSU kickstarted. He runs another one back into the red zone, and LSU destroys Georgia in the second half of that game. So you look at those plays, and I would also point to Morris Claiborne's kickoff return in Morgantown that absolutely helped LSU win that game and maybe staved off a loss in that game. I'll tell you this. This is something that I think you probably don't remember off of hand. I actually, and this is one of the few sidebars I actually have vivid memories of writing because I've never been in Morgantown and have not been back since, so it's the only time I ever spent in Morgantown. Luke Johnson was working for Tiger Rack at the time. I was with BBI. Luke wrote the game story, and I wrote the sidebar, which means the story kind of off to the side, and I wrote it on LSU special teams that day. So I went back and said, well, what did they do so special? Okay, well, here's that. Morris Claiborne ran a kickoff back. You remember that, and West Virginia has drawn within one score when he did that. But Brad Wing, also that night in Morgantown, dropped 6 punts inside the 20-yard line. 6 in that game. West Virginia's average starting field position for that game was their own 15-yard line. So in that game, where West Virginia outgained LSU by 167 yards of total offense, LSU won the game by 26 points. Because Brad Wing pinned West Virginia on every drive, and Morris Claiborne busted a punt return. So you look at that, that's pretty significant stuff. Now I bring you to a few weeks later in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. You remember a lot from that game. You remember Jordan Jefferson coming in and running the option. You remember Eric Reed's interception. You remember Michael Ford out of bounds. You remember Alabama missing 100 kicks. You remember a lot of things from that game, right? But what you may remember or may not is that Brad Wing, after the Eric Reed interception that LSU was pinned inside its own 3-yard line, kicked a 73-yard punt in that game to flip the field and make sure that Alabama couldn't score before the end of the game, so you got into overtime. That's a huge play in that game that a lot of you probably remember. It hit the Skycam wire. But special teams for that 2011 team was just massive in huge games, and you don't go 13-0 to start that season if you don't have great special teams. Now let's look at what LSU has done since in the last 4 years with Brian Kelly. Well, you remember the first game Brian Kelly ever coached at LSU. You got 2 kicks blocked, including the extra point that kept you out of overtime, and you muffed 2 punts in that game. Quite literally, if you win that game against Florida State, you go to College Station, Texas, where you got crushed, but you go into that game with legitimate national championship implications. Now, I think Georgia was going to dust you the next week anyway, but, I mean, I'm not making that up. If you beat Florida State, you would have gone to the SC championship game with just 1 loss. You would have gone to College Station with just 1 loss, and you could have beat A&M, played Georgia for the right to go play in the playoff. But you didn't because special teams were so bad. You muffed the opening kickoff against Tennessee. That year, you were 114th nationally in punt return average. 114th at LSU. That's just unacceptable. So now you bring in Ahmad Anan from Grambling, whose job is to fix the special teams. Last year, you were dead last in the SEC in average punting. Dead last, 16th. Like, that's unacceptable at LSU. You were 126th out of 134 teams in average punting. You had Peyton Todd, Blake Oxendorf. They averaged 39.6 yards per punt. You only had 1 punt the entire season that went 50 yards. This is LSU. Get a punter. So now you've gone out and added Grant Chadwick. As a freshman last year, he had 13 punts that went 50 yards. In one game against Duke, he averaged 48.8 yards per punt. 21 of his punts were down inside the 20. LSU's 2 punters last year combined for 12. He had 21. Distance control, hang time, leg strength, all that. Chadwick is a significant upgrade from what you had last year. And then you've got Aaron Burrell, who's going to handle your kickoffs for you. He was 3rd in the country in touchback percentage last year. He's back. So as far as your guys who were kicking the ball away, kickoffs and punts, you feel really good about that. Chadwick had an all-conference year, averaged a significant amount as a freshman, pinned the ball deep, like great year. Burrell is a proven commodity. And then you got Damian Ramos, who's been your place kicker for 3 years. He's third all-time in attempts at LSU, and he's seventh all-time in accuracy. 78% of his kicks he's made. So from that perspective, kicking the football, you feel like you're in a better spot. Now, Brian Kelly said this back on Monday when we talked to him. He said, and this isn't to bash anybody, but you've watched us play. We very rarely, other than returns, which we had, we didn't flip the field with our feet. We didn't flip the field with the punt game. We need to flip the field and put pressure on offenses, and we didn't do a very good job of that last year. So as much as it's about returns, we've got to flip the field too and let our defense get the ball back for our offense in a short field. Those are the things we're really focused on. LSU's defense is going to be good this year. It's going to be a good defense. You're going to watch that team fly around, make tackles for loss, be tough on third down, get after the quarterback. They're going to make some plays on the ball in the secondary. Give them some help with the ability to pin teams back, and then you can make life easier for your offense. So I like LSU's ability in special teams all the way through. And that doesn't even include the return game, and I don't even need to talk about that. Xavier Thomas has 2 kickoff return touchdowns in his career and a punt return touchdown. Barian Brown set the SEC record with 5 kickoff return touchdowns in his time at Kentucky. He's their all-time leader in kick return yards. That doesn't even mention Aaron Anderson, who housed the kickoff against Oklahoma last year. It doesn't mention Chris Hilton, who's maybe the fastest guy out there if they wanted to. I wouldn't mind if they sent Caleb Jackson back there to return kickoffs. He's big, strong, and fast. The return game I have no worries about. And Brian Kelly actually had a quote about that on Monday. He said, you punt it to us, we want to return that son of a gun every single time. I'm very bullish on this special teams group. And I don't think I'm projecting here. Ramos is proven. I don't think the transition from Middle Tennessee State to LSU in the SEC is going to be way too much for Grant Chadwick to deal with. Now, Oxendorf came up from Tech and didn't have a great year after he was all conference at Tech, so I can't guarantee that, but it feels pretty likely. And then you got the return game that should be great, and Burrell. I think LSU on special teams is really set up. And if you're going to have a really good team, you think about the 2011 team that had those huge impact plays on special teams. Even 2019 was a team that was very good on special teams. Cade York was 12 of 12 on field goals from inside 43 yards. Zach Von Rosenberg kicked 47 points, and only 9 of them got returned. Good teams have good special teams. And I don't spend a lot of time talking about it, and I can promise you when we get into the game pick segment on Fridays, and it's LSU Bama, or it's LSU Clemson next week, or it's LSU Ole Miss and Oxford, I'm not going to spend 15 minutes breaking down the special teams matchups. But that doesn't mean that 1 or 2 plays that happen in that game on special teams won't be massively impactful. I cherry-picked some of those statistics from years gone by, and I admit that, that's pretty obvious. But I just wanted to illustrate the point that you've got such good athletes here. You've got such good resources here. There's no reason not to be really good at this kind of stuff. And there have been times where LSU just hasn't been good at this stuff. And I'm not going to completely blame Brian Polian because Malik Neighbors and Jack Besh don't catch punts and kickoffs. They're pros. They're in the NFL. They have great hands. Something was in the water for 5 weeks for LSU, couldn't catch the ball. But I feel great about this group right now, and I think it's very, very important that LSU plays excellent on the special teams side of things. I think they will do that. So look at special teams there. I've got that all written out for you on LouisianaSports.net if you want to go check that out. Our Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. When we come back, Saints made a trade. We'll tell you about it next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is that website. Every car that's on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. Just go by and see them. The odds are, if you're cruising around Baton Rouge right now, that you're not behind the wheel of a Genesis. Just statistically speaking, you could be, but you're probably not. And then you may not have ever been behind the wheel of a Genesis. It's fairly new. They're fairly new in town. So if it's time to buy a vehicle or that time's approaching, give them a chance. Go by and see them. See the line of vehicles. Every single model is an IHA top safety pick. So if safety is right at the top of your list, you will know in every single Genesis vehicle that you're behind the wheel of one of the safest cars on the road. Not to mention, it's a luxury vehicle with an amazing team at Genesis of Baton Rouge, complimentary valet maintenance for 3 years, industry-leading warranties, all that stuff you can learn about when you go by Genesis. But you won't learn about it if you don't go in and see them. So go by Airline at Pico across from Women's Hospital. Just say, hey, Hunt sent me in. I just like to see what y'all have to offer. They're happy to help. You will feel like a guest, not a customer, at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Check out the inventory online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. That's genesisofbatonrouge.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef, some of the best beef you will find in America, and it's right outside of Baton Rouge. Sean Sagrera and his team at Sagrera Farms. Nothing but prime from Sagrera Farms. If you're interested in prime Angus beef, steaks, ground beef, whatever the case may be, want to fill that freezer for the fall, Sagrera Farms is a call you need to make. We'll be telling you about them, of course, as we do every week on our Thursday shows. The New Orleans Saints made a trade yesterday. They sent a 4th-round pick in next year's draft and a 7th-rounder in the following draft to the Denver Broncos for the rights to Devon Vele. And as y'all have heard me talk about the Saints, you understand how important I think draft selections are to the Saints. And I did not want the Saints to spend a lot of draft capital to move up in the draft, as they have in the past, to get one player when you need as many lottery tickets as you can get. So conventional wisdom would be, if you say back at draft time in March, April, May, like, hey, don't trade your draft picks for one player, you would suggest, hey, don't trade draft picks for this one player, right? No. This is not like trading up in the draft. This is trading for an actual NFL player who went out there for Denver last year, played in 13 games, caught 41 balls for 475 yards and 3 touchdowns. A very productive rookie player for the Broncos in a developing passing game. Bo Nix was pretty rough early in last year before he turned a corner, and the Broncos really hit their stride late in the season, and that's when you saw Vele come alive. I think this is a really good move for the Saints. I'll explain why. First of all, because you're looking at a guy who is 6'5", 210 pounds, and I look around the Saints wide receiver room, and I struggle to find guys that I know can dunk. It's a bit of an exaggeration. I'm sure Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed have no issue dunking on a 10-foot basketball goal. However, all of the guys in that room are about 5'11" to 6'1". I need some size in that room. I need a physical presence. I need a big body. I need a big frame. Here's your answer. And guess what? Not only is he your answer, he's young and he's cheap. Now, he's not as young as most rookies because he's 27. But you're talking about a guy who I would suggest has 4 or 5 really, really good prime years of football in him. And you grab him on a rookie contract. You don't always get 27, 28-year-olds on rookie deals, right? Well, you get one here. So the fit from the Saints' perspective with their roster makes all the sense in the world. You need this body type. Your receiver room should look more like a basketball team than it does right now. Right now, it looks like a bunch of guys who are clones of each other. And there's talent there. I like Olave. I like Shaheed. Beyond that, I'm not sure what you've got. Brandon Cooks at the tail end of his prime. Beyond that, probably, but he's still the same size. Like, you needed this, and so you got that. That's a big deal. And the other side of the trade is always, okay, what did you give up? Well, I told you the Saints gave up a 4th-rounder next year and a 7th-rounder the year after that. And while those are assets, they're very questionable. And suggesting that you would find someone that you know can go out an NFL season and catch 475 yards worth of ball and 3 touchdowns is a stretch in the 4th round. Now, you hope you've really hit home runs with your 4th-round picks in this past draft with Stutzman and Quincy Riley. But you look at some of the other 4th-round picks you've taken. Nick Saldiveri, Jake Haener, not going to help. Now, Ian Book, bust, didn't help. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, that's a hit, no doubt. Rick Leonard, never helped. Tackle. David Onyemata, good player. Absolutely. That's a hit. Kyrie Fort, bust. Like, these are the guys you're getting in the fourth round. Your hit rate's not even 50% on guys that you're taking in the fourth round. This is going to be a hit. And the seventh round is an even bigger crapshoot than that. I mean, I can go through the seventh round picks the Saints have taken. Very rarely does the seventh round pick help you a lot. You're talking about Josiah Zerum, who's been a squad player for you from last year. Kawan Baker, I don't even remember him, from South Alabama. Tommy Stevens, you took out of Mississippi State. He never helped you at all. Caden Ellis, a linebacker who became a nice player. But Will Clapp's been a journeyman offensive lineman in the league. Daniel Lasco at running back, no. Like, the seventh round is a complete crapshoot. You're getting a proven commodity on a cheap contract for very little in return. I think this is exactly the kind of move the New Orleans Saints need to make. It makes sense from a roster perspective. It makes sense from a production perspective. It makes sense from a giving away of assets perspective. Everything about this I like. And that's the kind of moves the Saints are going to have to make moving forward if they want to dig themselves out of this rush. I think Vele comes in immediately and becomes a guy who is going to play. I think he's going to be out there active a lot. I think he's going to be the only guy on this receiving core who plays this type of role. I think he's a red zone threat. I think he's a third down threat. I think he's even a deep ball threat at that size. I think this is an immediate help to your roster now and to your roster then. And my entire point with everything the Saints do when it comes to free agent contracts, when it comes to drafting, when it comes to signing the guys that are on your roster to extensions, like, everything needs to be in mind with what's best for the next really good Saints team. And this could be really good for the next really good Saints team. Maybe that's next year. Maybe it's the year following. Either way, he should be around. He should be productive. So this is a big win for the Saints. It seems small. It's not one that's going to make the front block of SportsCenter, not one that's going to dominate the crawl on the NFL Network, not even one that I led the show with today, but one that makes all the sense in the world. So hopefully you can get him into camp. You've got a couple of weeks to get him ready for that first game, and he should fit right in as a guy that you don't have. You don't have this option. So I am all about getting Devon Vele in this trade, and you at times concern yourself with doing business with Sean Payton. You know, Loomis and Sean Payton go all the way back, and maybe he knows something that you don't. And I think there's a lot of fans that are around here in South Louisiana that trust Sean Payton far more than they trust Mickey Loomis, and I get that. I completely get that. But this makes a lot of sense, I think, for both teams. The Broncos have a loaded receiver room that's very much set up without this asset. They get a couple of draft picks that they can use at a later time, and the Saints part with those assets, which are very much question marks, and they can go ahead and add in more of a certainty. I wouldn't call it a certainty, but more of a certainty than what you had on your roster previously, and certainly what you can have on your in your draft pick. So I'm all about this move. I think it's a really, really good one for the black and gold with this trade. Just 2.5 weeks before things get started with the Saints and the Cardinals. You've heard me talk about it, Jordan Kitchens. Does this move your needle?
I don't really have anything positive to say about anything Mickey Loomis does.
Easy now. We got to do something good.
My thing is, Hunt, I wanted them to draft a receiver so bad. I was with it until I found out he's older than me. Like, that's where the problem starts to lie. It's like,
you're telling me a 26-year-old, 27-year-old can't play?
Well, it's more like you said, the next great Saints team. He's already turning 20. He's already 27 years old.
Right.
Like, how the life cycle of an NFL guy is not really that long, you know. But my thing is, though,
at 31, he can't play?
Yeah, you could be receiver 4, you know.
I didn't say he was going to be the main guy.
My thing is, like, what I wanted, because we all know, we're all aware about Chris Olave's head. Chris Olave is basically one hit away from God knows what happens to Olave. So I was always down for them to draft a receiver in this draft. You didn't get one, that's fine and dandy. But it's like, just seeing how Broncos fans were, oh my God, they gave us a 4th-round pick for this guy. I mean, they liked him. Don't get me wrong, they didn't have nothing bad to say about dude, but it was more like the Saints just overextended their hand again for a piece that you already could have covered your tracks. Everybody knew going up to the season, having Brandon Cooks, Chris Olave, and Rashid Shaheed, 3 guys that are like barely 6 feet, if that. Brandon Cooks probably 5'10" on a good day. Everybody seen that was going to be a deficiency, and you still went and paid a 4th-round pick and a 7th next year for a guy that was drafted in the 7th round who was going to lose the numbers game regardless. He was going to lose the numbers game in Denver regardless. So it's like, who knows? Would they have cut him? I don't know. I just know that, like you said, they had a loaded receiver room in Denver. He's losing the numbers game. They had to get rid of him. And it's like you paid extra for something.
I don't know that you did. Like, you take a receiver in the 7th round, he's probably not going to make the team.
Well, I'm not even saying,
he did in Denver. Yeah. But, like, this is a more sure thing than a draft pick. You've already seen him play in the NFL. You know he can do it.
But also, we had a guy a couple years back, A.T. Perry. Tall, he had a production. I don't know what happened with Dennis Allen. He like fell out with him the next year. But it's just like we're running in circles, and I'm just tired of running in circles. I just feel like the Saints are just running in circles. And it's like, I want to be positive, like, oh yeah, he's trying to make the team better. He's trying to do this and that. But I just feel like, you ever seen the cartoons where the guy's like walking into the rake and the rake just keeps hitting him in the face?
Yeah.
Like that's what I just feel like we're perpetually in at the moment. We just keep walking into a rake, and it's like, oh well, maybe something different's gonna change. Like I don't have nothing positive to say about Mickey.
He doesn't. It's gonna be a long fall for my guy Jordan Kitchens. All right, let's talk Vanderbilt football when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is that website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. David told me back when we went to breakfast on Tuesday, the thing that they do the most often, if this rings a bell, we'll reach out. They do this a lot. They take the model of the bathroom that has the stand-in shower and then the big jacuzzi-style tub. They transform that stand-in shower that's kind of narrow, it's a square, and they turn that into a linen closet. And then they take that big tub that no one ever uses, and they put in a bigger, more spacious walk-in shower. If that's something that would fit in your bathroom that you'd like to explore, let David Duvall and his team handle it. That's not something you want to call the handy guy down the street to start working on. Get David and his team that have been doing this for 30 years, that have a master plumber on staff, that can show you the template for what they do constantly, and then get in there and help you out with that. Check out the website, onebathandclosets.com. You can see pictures of their great work. They handle vanity build-outs as well. You can have a new closet put in. Get that free consultation with David and his team at onebathandclosets.com. It's onebathandclosets.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools.
Thursday shows brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. We've been looking around at LSU's opponents for the SEC slate to come here in the fall of 2025. I know a lot of Tiger fans excited to head up to Nashville in the middle of October the 18th to be exact, where they visit the Vanderbilt Commodores in a gorgeous city where the weather should be really good, and I believe a newly refurbished stadium. Let's talk about it with Andrew Alegretta, the voice of the Vanderbilt Commodores. Appreciate a little bit of time. How are you?
I'm doing great. What's going on?
Well, we're getting closer to football. That's what's going on. And I would have to imagine this August feels different around the Vanderbilt football program than August in the recent past, no?
It's good vibes right now. I think we're mindful enough that, injuries or one game here or there can sort of alter the way that you feel week to week. But you talked about the stadium that we're going to debut here in a couple of days, plus the way that the team played a season ago. Yes, for sure. The vibes are positive right now.
So let's talk about last year and what that meant to the program, to Clark Lee. I know a lot of folks have seen the Netflix documentary that profiled Vanderbilt a good bit and talked about laying the foundation for something really special there. What kind of step forward was last year?
I mean, it certainly was huge. I think there's a lot to talk about with last season, but I do believe that Clark always in his heart felt like he could move this program in the right direction and believed that way back in 2021 when he got hired. He used it strategically that he wanted to be, as egotistically as he said it was, the savior of the program. In his heart, he believed this program can be and should be a good one. That's why he uses the phrase one of one. But it's another deal to be able to put a player on the field. To me, that's always the secret sauce. When you can put a player on the field that backs up what the coaches are saying. That way you've got true alignment between players and coaches, and he's really got that with Diego. So the fact that they could have all of that stuff, they could have the success that was necessary. You've got alignment, players, coaches, and administration. It was a massive step forward.
How does Diego Pavia change the attitude of the Vanderbilt football team? That's kind of what I took away from the Netflix doc, but I'd rather your opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, he's the quarterback, so that's step number one. Like, if he can play, perform, and talk and believe, what he does carries the most possible weight of anybody that puts on the shoulder pads. The other thing that he said, not to keep cycling back to the Netflix doc, because, it's just a snapshot in time, but I'm glad they kept it in here. His line about when he first got to Vanderbilt, there's way too much chatter about what the schedule looks like, right? We can get this game. We can't get this game. Here's our path to 6. And it irritated him. I know it irritates Clark and others because the message is we're going to go try to win every single ball game. We can win every single ball game. We've always been mindful that margins are thin for Vanderbilt during the build, right? Like, it's not just going to be us trotting out an LSU roster or an Alabama roster or a Georgia roster. But there was always a belief from Clark and then echoed and doubled down on by Diego that if we take the field, if we strap on the helmet, then we can win a ball game. So I think that's probably as much of anything, just a sense of true, genuine belief. It doesn't matter what the uniform across the way is, that we've got 12 games on our schedule and the intention is to win 12.
When I think about Vanderbilt, I think about some really good skill players over the years, running backs and wide receivers as well. The line of scrimmage can be difficult. I'm looking at an offensive line that I think only turns one starter, but I see a lot of seniors. How do you feel that offensive line should be able to operate in front of Pavia?
Man, what a good question. I think one of the biggest misnomers about every preseason article that I have seen about Vanderbilt is, the offensive line doesn't return this or doesn't return that, and it's a bunch of new players. Look, I think we had a solid offensive line that allowed us to execute the scheme and a really good quarterback to be successful offensively last year. I don't think anybody in the building doesn't believe that from a skill set standpoint, we haven't upgraded that position. Like, you've got a ton of players that I think we believe wholeheartedly are a skill set upgrade from a season ago. Jordan White is going to be our center. He's a transfer from Liberty. Like, he's on a lot of watch lists as one of the best centers in the country. We've got Bryce Henderson, who's going to play, they call it the strong tackle position. He's 6'8". And when we say 6'8", it's not like, phony, baloney, goofy roster 6'8". That dude is huge. He's going to play that outside strong tackle position. Like, right down the line, I think we believe that the talent of that offensive front is better than it was a season ago. So that should bode well for Pavia. But again, injuries happen to everybody. They happen to every single position. So stuff can change very, very quickly. But as we get set for 25, there's a lot of optimism that the offensive line is going to allow the offense to be better than it was a season ago.
Do you feel like Eli Stowers at tight end is probably the focal point of the skill position players? Is that fair to say?
I mean, I guess, right? We have not had a genuine first-round draft pick since 2008, and I don't necessarily know who would be considered the last, first-round draft grade in the past 10 years. I don't know if Jordan Matthews perhaps kind of snuck into that conversation. The wide receiver turned eventual tight end at the pro level, very, very, SEC's all-time leading receiver statistically.
Yeah.
He has to be that guy. But I think, at crunch time, your best players have to make the plays, no doubt. But I think because he's going to absorb so much of the scouting report, I think we believe that there's enough intriguing pieces behind Eli that, one, those pieces can step up, and two, they can knock down some of the pressure off of Eli from a scouting report standpoint, too.
Mentioned a lot of departures on the offensive front. The defensive front, that's not the case. Front seven almost entirely intact. Is that the strength of the defense?
Linebackers specifically. There's no doubt. Like, you guys went out and did a wonderful job, as always, in the transfer portal. really bolstered your skill set and talent across the board. I think Vanderbilt zoned in on the line of scrimmage. They upgraded the offensive line. They added a lot of really good depth on the defensive line, and that's bolstered by the fact that our linebackers are, I don't know that every single one of them is going to be an NFL prospect, but I think we sit here and go, every single one of those guys could make an SEC football roster, and they could do so successfully and crack the depth chart at a lot of places. Like Langston Patterson is just a thumper of a linebacker. Brian Longwell is just a really instinctual linebacker who's going to make a lot of good plays. He led our team in tackles a season ago. You've got a guy like Bryce Cowan who's got a ton of athleticism. He's back. Nick Rinaldi is he's a linebacker, but he's versatile. He can kind of play an edge position. He led our team in sacks a year ago, had a sack on Milroe in the game versus Alabama. Like, he's back. And then you've got that kind of flexible, hybrid safety linebacker position in Brandon Fonten that had the interception and touchdown versus Alabama. He's back. He is an absolute lightning rod. So kind of that middle part of the defense, that second level of the defense, we sure think is really darn good. We'll see how it plays out. But, again, preseason, we like the way it looks.
I feel like I could just break Vanderbilt's schedule down month by month. I look at September, if I include August 30th in September, it's Charleston Southern, then 2 back-to-back road trips at Virginia Tech, who Vanderbilt beat last year, and then at South Carolina before Georgia State and Utah State wrap up the non-conference. Like, how important are those 2 road games right there after Charleston Southern for the start of this team?
Man, I don't know. I think I get the schedule conversations. I think one of the things that I'm going to start taking away from a season ago is, if you told me at the start of 24 that Vanderbilt was going to end up going 7-6 and making a bowl game, I would say, yeah, that sounds like something that we could do. I don't know if we would, but we could do it. But there's no way you're going to get to 7-6 with the games falling the way that they did between Alabama and Georgia State and all that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. Like, if we go 0-3 to start, like that, that's a red flag. But I don't know. I think, again, back to what Diego Pavia said, right? Like, you want to be able to go on the road and pick off Virginia Tech again. You want to be able to go on the road and get a team in South Carolina that, has befuddled Vanderbilt for more than a decade now. But, I'm sure a lot of LSU fans have tremendous confidence that they're going to come to Vanderbilt and walk out of here with a victory. Well, so did the Alabama fans. So did the Virginia Tech fans, right? Like, so I think, who knows if we pick off you guys, LSU, whatever it is, October. But it's so hard for me to sit here and say, well, they've got to be 3-0 because here comes Texas and LSU and whatever. Who knows, man? I walked out of 24 going like, you can't schedule plot anymore because you're gonna be wrong.
That's completely fair. One thing that I know you won't be wrong about is telling me about the new look stadium. I know it was kind of a construction site last year. Tiger fans will be headed up there in October. What can you tell them about what to expect when they get there?
It's gorgeous. We're really happy with it. I think it fits who we are. It fits what we need right now. We really lacked, and I know this is kind of the modern economy, and sometimes I don't love talking about it because I want to make sure that everybody's doing right for the common fan. But making sure that your premium spaces are where they need to be is really important across all athletics. And we 10x'd our premium spaces with this upgrade. So the north end zone and the south end zone are completely redone. We knocked stuff down. We built them up. The north end zone was there last year. The south end zone is, I'm watching them kind of bolt in chairs as we speak and try to finish up some club level seating. So I think it's a really good fit for us and who we are. And I think it really should add to the game day experience, yes, for visiting fans as they come into town, but also should make the experience that much more compelling for, the Vanderbilt community here in town.
Enjoy this weekend off and then working for a bunch of weekends in a row. We appreciate a little bit of time. He's Andrew Alegretta, voice of the Commodores. We'll catch up soon, okay?
Of course, man. Appreciate it.
Andrew Alegretta from Vanderbilt, giving us a little thumbnail on Clark Lea's Commodores. I've got some thoughts on some of the things he said, which was all I thought very interesting and right on point. And, we don't spend a lot of time talking about Vanderbilt on the show unless LSU's playing Vanderbilt. And LSU's playing Vanderbilt, and it's one of the games on the road in the league on your schedule. So when we come back, I'll give you kind of a thumbnail on what I think about this coming fall for the Doors. We'll do that when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is the website. Look, captives are something that not every business is familiar with in the insurance world. It can be an incredibly creative solution to your risk management finances. It can affect your bottom line in some instances in a very big way. If you're a big commercial account, if you're a big commercial insurance program, and you don't know what you might look like in a captive, that might be something you want to look into. If you're a sizable business, you're probably spending a significant amount on insurance, and it probably doesn't make you super happy to do it. But what if you could change the way you manage risk financially? If your broker hasn't shown you that or doesn't have a great grip on that or doesn't have access to that, which is possible, talk to the Highland Insurance Group. Talk to Jonathan Carbo and his team at the Highland Insurance Group. They handle captives every single day. So go talk to them. Say, hey, I'd like to just explore what a captive might look like. They'd be happy to help you with that. It's Jonathan Carbo and the Highland Insurance Group. They're based right here in Baton Rouge. They can help you out statewide. It's the Highland Insurance Group. You can find them online at HighlandIG.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. I tell you about Sagrera Farms every single Thursday. Some of the finest beef in the nation is right here just outside Baton Rouge. And it's a scientific process that Sean and his team over there at Sagrera Farms have developed over the course of this decade. And the result is top 1% beef. I tell you every time about these intramuscular fat scores. Select beef is 1 to 4 on the IMF scale. Choice beef, which is probably 60% of the beef you see out there, is between 4 and 8% on the IMF score. Prime, which is 10% or less of the beef out there, is 9% or better. Sagrera Farms on the farm right now has 15s, 17s, 19s, 20 on that scale. Truly some of the finest beef in the country. If you're sick of asking questions about the beef that you purchase weekly, you don't know where it comes from or if steroids were used or if you're talking about antibiotics being used inappropriately, that never happens at Sagrera Farms. And when you go to Sagrera Farms, you get to pick the beef that you buy. You pick the cow. I want that half. I want that side. I want that whole cow. It's one DNA, and it's going to be prime. They're consistent in the product that they produce. It's strategic mating of some of the finest cattle you'll find. And it's a 3-year journey. Raised on grass, finished on grain, dry aged 35, 45 days. And then you purchase it, bring it on home, put it in your freezer. Prime Angus beef. Fillets, ribeyes, strips, flanks, skirts, chuck roasts, the whole deal you can have in your freezer for the fall for football season. You want to put steaks on the grill when you're watching the Tigers? Sagrera Farms is what you need to be eating. Call Sean, 225-719-1723. It's 225-719-1723, Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. You know, I bet there's a lot of people, speaking of Vanderbilt, who we talked about in the last segment, who don't recall that Vanderbilt lost to Georgia State last year. Vanderbilt went to Atlanta and lost to Georgia State 36-32. I bet you don't realize that Vanderbilt last year beat Ball State by 10, 24-14. Those have kind of been forgotten because of how well Vanderbilt played up to the elite teams in the SEC. They beat Alabama, and that was not a fluke. They didn't get 5 turnovers. They didn't block 2 field goals. The quarterback didn't get hurt, and they just beat Alabama. Alabama could not stop Vanderbilt, and that's why Vanderbilt rolled up 40 points in that game and won it. They played Texas to a 3-point game. Texas, playoff team. 3-point game. They went to the Plains of Auburn, held Hugh Freeze's team to 7 points. The game here in Baton Rouge, I don't remember a lot of plays from that game. I remember LSU wearing just abhorrent uniforms in that game. It's really my only memory of it. But it was a 7-point game. I don't remember sitting in the stadium thinking LSU was going to lose that game. I know that it was a 7-point game. And you think about those results and you're like, that's an incredible go for Vanderbilt. And I think it was. I'm curious what they can do for an encore. And I think that's a fair thing to question. Because you're talking about a team that is going to be short on NFL talent. Like, yeah, Stowers is going to be an NFL guy, a tight end. Can I definitely point to anybody else on the offense and be certain they're going to play in the NFL? I'm not sure I can. I don't know. You never know. You've got an undrafted free agent that becomes a Pro Bowler. That happens every year. But you're not going to look at a lot of mock drafts and see Vanderbilt popping up, and that's just what you're going to see with a lot of teams in the SEC. And I thought Andrew made a great point in that last segment about me saying you got to get off to a good start, because I feel like you need to beat Charleston Southern, Georgia State, and Utah State, and then maybe split Virginia Tech and South Carolina if you're thinking about really upping your win total. But as he said, they could have beaten Texas last year. They did beat Bama. They played LSU tough in Tiger Stadium, went to Auburn and won. Who's to say? I guess that's kind of the job, to create talking points and give our predictions. That's part of being a talk show host, and Andrew's a play-by-play voice. So he's just going to react to it as he sees it. But, I don't know. They could lose to Virginia Tech and South Carolina and then come back and beat Missouri, Auburn, and Kentucky late in the season. They could do that. I think that Vanderbilt is going to be right on the precipice of 6 wins. I don't think they're going to build on last year's season. That's my opinion. I think Diego Pavia would love to hear that. Think I'm an idiot. But that's my thought. I don't consider that game for LSU to be, in the top 5 that it'll play in terms of difficulty this year. But we'll see. That's why they play the games, I guess. And I certainly would have projected Vanderbilt season last year the way that it went. Great stuff from Andrew. If you missed our conversation with the play-by-play voice of the Commodores, you can check that out on demand wherever you find your sound. We're going to step aside for national headlines and Sports Center. We've got a lot to do when we come back in the second hour. We're going to talk a lot about LSU with Chris Blair. Talk to Sonny Ship as well.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is the website. Every car that's on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. I tell you about the warranties because they're America's best. It's industry leading what they are doing with their warranties over there at Genesis of Baton Rouge. And if that's something you'd like to hear more about, well, go talk to them about an airline at PQ, but I can give you the nuts and bolts of it. Powertrain warranty, 10 years, 100,000 miles. Bumper to bumper, new vehicle warranty, 5 years, 60,000 miles. That's industry leading. 24/7 roadside assistance, 5 years, unlimited miles. Complimentary scheduled maintenance, valet style.